The zebra killer has struck 18 times now on the streets of this city. His death toll stands at 12. Mayor Joseph Alioto describes the situation.
And one of the problems we're having every time you have a mindless thing without motive, and when the victims themselves are selected at random, the only situation being that they be white and that they be at or around certain communities in San Francisco. When that kind of a thing is there, you can't really investigate it as you would a regular murder. There's no way of doing it.
I'm saying the whole so-called zebra hunt, the SLA is all planned, constructively and contrived by the powers that be and the agencies of those powers.
The total amount of reward money now offered for the zebra killer totals $30,000, but neither the mayor nor police are making any predictions as to when or how an arrest will be made. This is Larry Whirl at the Hall of Justice, San Francisco.
We certainly feel that in San Francisco our streets are safe, and we've been certainly striving for this, and this is the first attack of this type we have had in the city. And of course, we've assigned more patrols and also have more men assigned in the investigation of this case to determine actually what is behind it.
It was possible for one vehicle containing any number of suspects to have committed all these shootings.
The shootings began last night around 7:30 in the Haight-Ashbury district. By 10 p.m., 4 persons lay dead, all white. Another victim lies critically wounded in San Francisco General Hospital. Police have labeled the manhunt Operation Zebra. All the victims were shot with .32 caliber bullets, which came from 2 and possibly 3 weapons.
The year is 1973. A winter fog spills over Twin Peaks, curling down toward Market Street. Beneath it, San Francisco is a city in flux. Not quite the freewheeling utopia it was promised to be, but not yet the corporate hub it will become. National headlines spill into the streets. The U.S. begins withdrawing troops from Vietnam, and anti-war demonstrations continue on the steps of City Hall.
We have protested that use of the university in the past. We have protested the use of the university to support the war in Vietnam by again discovering military means to resolve social and political problems.
The counterculture's ideals of love and freedom have left their mark, but so have its shadows. In the Bay Area, people still speak in low tones about the Zodiac Killer, whose taunting letters and cryptic codes terrified the city and its suburbs in the late 60s and early 70s. By 1973, his trail had gone cold, but his name is enough to raise a shiver in anyone old enough to remember those headlines. Manson wandered Haight-Ashbury in '67, charming drifters and collecting followers from the same streets where hippies sang about peace. The realization that such violence could grow from the same soil as the Flower Children still hangs over the city like an unspoken warning. Across the bay in Oakland, the Black Panther Party, born in 1966 to challenge police brutality and fight for racial justice, has shifted from armed patrol to community survival programs, free breakfast for children, health clinics, and liberation schools. Their presence is still felt in San Francisco's Fillmore district, once known as the Harlem of the West, where jazz clubs stand alongside the scars of urban renewal that displaced thousands of black residents. On October 20th, 1973, Richard Haig, 30, and his wife, Keita, 28, were abducted at gunpoint and forced into a van while walking from their Telegraph Hill home in San Francisco. Keita Haig's body was found nearly decapitated over 4 miles away on a railroad track. Richard Haig, who had been beaten unconscious, was later found wandering near her body with his hands bound and his head and face slashed. He was able to give police a description of the attackers, describing them as 3 young black men in a white van. The description matched an earlier abduction attempt of 3 boys, ages 11 to 15.
I'm standing about 50 to 60 yards from the corner of 25th and Minnesota. This is the area where police found the young woman laying in a pool of blood. They don't know much about the killing except that sometime around 10 o'clock last night, the couple was walking down a street in the North Beach area, and they were abducted by 3 men at gunpoint, forced into a car and brought here. The woman's throat was cut. The man was hit several times over the head with what police describe as a large bladed object. He was left for dead, but he managed to walk back up to the roadway where he flagged down a motorist who took him to the nearest police station. He remains in serious condition tonight at a local San Francisco hospital. This is a puzzling murder for San Francisco police because it was almost execution-like. They call it an isolated incident, but the investigation remains undercover and police will say nothing more. Bob Jimenez, Channel 4 News.
Keita and Richard Haig left their Chestnut Street home around 9 o'clock for an evening stroll when 2 neatly dressed men approached the young couple. A night of terror which left the 28-year-old woman the victim of a vicious murder had begun. The Haigs were forced at gunpoint into a van driven by a 3rd man. Richard Haig was struck unconscious, and when he came to, his wife was lying dead beside him. Passers-by took the bleeding, incoherent man to the nearest police station. When police returned to the scene at 25th and Minnesota Streets, they found the body, hands tied behind the back, the throat slit almost completely through. Homicide inspectors can offer no explanations. Money was not the motive, as the Haigs had only a few dollars between them.
On October 30th, 1973, Frances Rose, 28, was shot repeatedly in her car near the University of California Extension. A witness to the shooting said a man sitting in the passenger seat shot Rose and then jumped out of her car. The man was identified as Jesse Lee Cooks, and he was arrested shortly after. On November 9th, 1973, Robert Wayne Stokeman, 27, was shot by Leroy Doctor. Just before the shooting, Stokeman, a field clerk for Pacific Gas and Electric Company, was on duty, picking up paperwork from various projects, when a well-dressed man asked him for directions to a filling station. The man then pushed Stokeman behind a fence and pulled out a .32 caliber revolver, shooting him in the neck. He survived the attack, took the gun away from the man, and shot him 3 times in the arm, shoulder, and stomach. Leroy Doctor was arrested and sentenced to a term of 9.5 years to life in prison. On November 25th, 1973, Salim Arakat, 53, was found dead in his store across from the San Francisco Civic Center. Arakat's body was found near an empty cash register, shot in the head, his hands bound with his own necktie. Over $1,000 was stolen from the store. His wallet was found empty on a Muni bus later that day. It was revealed that his murderer was a regular customer who had greeted Arakat in Arabic before this incident.
Today, with the arrest, Arakat's son says he feels some relief.
Well, I'm glad that somebody has been arrested for murdering my father, according to the papers anyway, that's what it said. And it's kind of a relief, even though it doesn't bring my father back. It's good to know that they've been captured, and they won't be killing any more people on the streets.
I feel better, but I wish I could talk to him, and ask him why he did it, because they took the money and they tied my husband with his own tie.
His death was unique as he was an Arab and a person of color killed by the Death Angels. On December 11, 1973, Paul Danzig, 26, was standing with a friend near a telephone booth. The friend told police that 2 young black men in navy peacoats approached them and began shooting, killing Danzig. 3.32 caliber shell casings were left at the scene. 2 days later, on the evening of December 13, 1973, Art Agnos, 35, top aide to San Francisco Assemblyman Leo McCarthy, was in Potrero Hill attending a meeting on child care centers. After the meeting ended, while Agnos was talking with 2 women outside, a black man walked up and fired 2 shots into his chest. Agnos survived the attack.
At me twice and shot me.
Did you see the man shoot at you?
No, I didn't see him shoot at me because my face was turned towards the women. And the man came from my left side and I was facing this way. After hearing the gunshots, I thought that there were firecrackers going off because I didn't see anything. And the women started running away to protect me and asking me to come with them. I started chasing them to calm them down and reassure them that no one's going to hurt them. And at that point, they told me that the man was trying to kill me, and I wheeled around quickly to see what they were talking about. And that's when I saw the man for the first time, standing about 8 or 10 yards away with the gun in his hand, looking at me with this blank stare. He probably was trying to figure out why I didn't fall, mainly because I didn't know I had been shot until the women came back and told me.
Well, what you've seen...
Things are continuing. I have every confidence that the police are doing the best they can. It's just such a baffling kind of process. These indiscriminate murders all over the city that it's hard to get your finger on it, I guess.
It's not going to put you off the street, I can tell that from the way you talk.
Not at all. If anything, it's going to just put me back on the street working as hard as I can to continue developing programs that the community thinks they need so that we can establish the services that people need to put an end to the kinds of conditions that would lead a man or two men or a group of men to hate somebody so much to do this kind of thing.
The future mayor, Art Agnos, was their 6th victim.
Then I looked down, I was bleeding.
Shot after attending a community meeting on Potrero Hill. The killers were tied to a militant black Muslim group known as the Death Angels.
And in order to be initiated into this very murderous group, they had to kill a white person. This was such a racially tinged, sensitive issue. A radical sect of the black Muslims killing white people. It's something that this country is not comfortable discussing or remembering.
Less than 90 minutes later, Marietta DiGirolamo, 31, was standing in a doorway along Divisadero Street when a black man wearing a long leather jacket shot her 3 times at close range. Police found 3.32 caliber shell casings at the place of the shooting. On December 20th, 1973, Ilario Bertuccio, 81, was shot 4 times as he walked across the street while on his way home from his work. Just over 2 hours after Bertuccio was killed, Therese DeMartini, 20, survived being shot several times near her apartment while parking her car after returning home from a Christmas party. On December 22nd, 1973, Neil Moynihan, 19, was shot 3 times while walking near Market Street. Within a few minutes and a few blocks of Moynihan's murder, Mildred Hostler, 65, was shot 4 times at point-blank range. Initial reports of the Moynihan and Hostler shootings both mentioned a buckskin coat, but witnesses reported different races, and in some instances described a man with a medium complexion. Nevertheless, police indicated that the shootings were likely committed by the same person responsible for 5 other killings over the previous 5 days, due to the fact that all 7 victims were shot at close range with a handgun 3 or 4 times, and none were robbed. On December 24th, 1973, a dismembered body named John Doe number 169, cut with surgical precision, wrapped in plastic, and stuffed in a cardboard box, was found at Ocean Beach. His head, hands, and feet were missing. It was testified that the remaining Death Angels took turns hacking off his limbs, starting with his fingers and toes, until he was disassembled like a hog in a butcher's shop. 1974. The killings resumed on January 28, 1974, with 5 more shootings. 4 were fatal. Tana Smith, 32, was shot on the sidewalk, only 6 blocks from her home. 10 minutes later, and 8 blocks away, Vincent Wallen, 69, was shot twice in the back while digging through trash cans for items to repair and sell to supplement his Social Security checks. He died just a few feet from his home, where friends were waiting for him to arrive to celebrate his birthday. John Bambick, 87, a man known for his funny hats, was shot twice in the back, just an hour later, and died immediately. Jane Holly, 45, was doing her laundry when a gunman ran through the door of the laundromat and shot her twice in the back. She died just before she could celebrate her 25th wedding anniversary.
One night, 5 people were shot in 2 hours, including a 45-year-old woman who was just doing her laundry here on Silver Avenue. That's when the gunman walked in, shot, and killed her.
Minutes later, Roxanne McMillan, 23, survived being shot twice as she was removing clothing from her car by the same man who had just greeted her on the street. On April 1st, 1974, Tom Rainwater, 19, and Linda Story, 21, Both Salvation Army cadets were shot while on their way to grab something to eat at a restaurant. Only Story survived the attack. On April 14th, 1974, Terry White, 15, who was waiting for a bus, and Ward Anderson, 18, who was hitchhiking just a few feet away, were each shot twice. Both teenagers survived. On April 16, 1974, Nelson Shields IV, 23, was making room in a friend's car for a rug he had just purchased when he was shot in the back 3 times. He died grasping a lacrosse stick.
Four 187s and an attempted 187. A series of 4 to 6'2". Slender build, short to medium length hair. Mustache, possible goatee, wearing a collar.
My recommendation is that people be careful when they're on the street, be alert, and of course, as the mayor said, if people have information, any information regarding any of these incidents, please contact us.
Police are seeking witnesses who might have been in the neighborhood of Chestnut Street and Columbus Avenue around 9 Saturday evening, or who might have seen the light-colored Dodge van driven by the assailants. Please call the homicide detail if you have any information. This is Linda Shen for Eyewitness News.
I will not come out at night because we had too many bad experiences.
You don't walk around here at night.
No. As I say, when my husband was in the hospital, I took a taxi home, and I live just 2 blocks away.
Well, we were planning on moving anyway, so we are now.
It's gotten to be pretty rough, I think. And I am out late at night because I go out for a paper around 9 o'clock at night, and I know it's rough down in this area anyway, but after that, I mean, you're afraid when anybody walks up to you, you know. Some guy walks up to you, like that one girl, high, and then blast you. Well, what are you going to do? What do you think?
It's dangerous.
Will you be going out at night, son?
No, I'd be kind of afraid, really.
Operation Zebra. The murders caused widespread panic in San Francisco. The city suffered losses in revenue by a dramatic drop in tourist traffic. Many hotel, nightclub, restaurant, and theater owners reported a decline in business. Streets were deserted at night, even in North Beach, a neighborhood with 7-night-a-week nightlife. A manhunt dubbed Operation Zebra, due to the Z police frequency used for communication, was launched immediately following the murders on January 28, 1974. Initial evidence related to the killings revealed a common pattern. In a hit-and-run shooting, the gunman would walk up to his victim, shoot the victim repeatedly at close range, and flee on foot. Another link among the shootings was the killer's preference for a .32 caliber pistol, based on the slugs recovered from the victims and the shell casings found at the crime scenes. A stop-and-search program was instituted on April 17, 1974, following the shooting of Nelson Shields. The next day, a grid of 6 police combat zones were set up in the city of San Francisco, and more than 150 officers were deployed into the area. Each officer carried a composite sketch of the suspect, prepared by Homicide Inspector Hobart Nelson, based on the descriptions given by the many witnesses he interviewed. During the searches, field interrogation cards were filled out when officers deemed further questioning necessary. Recorded on the cards were the individuals' names, ages, addresses, and driver's license and social security numbers. Those cards were turned over to homicide detectives and ultimately kept on file at the Hall of Justice. Vocal and widespread criticism from the Black community emerged immediately following the start of the program. Black Panther Party leader Bobby Seale described the program as vicious and racist.
I'm saying the whole so-called zebra hunt, the SLA is all planned, constructively and contrived by the powers that be and the agencies of those powers via the police departments from the CIA on down. Well, let's start with Sin-Q himself. The evidence is released by Don Freed himself. The amount of times this man has been in and out of prison, he was deliberately let go. Many times he was not, they didn't attempt to kill him like they attempted to kill Huey P. Newton and I. They didn't run him to 3 and 4 trials like most of the Black Panther Party members. I began to look around and I began to ask the question, the FBI, they found and captured Angela Davis. They say they found and captured Rap Brown. I mean, what's the game? It's a gimmick going here, you know what I mean, with all their technological equipment, etc.
The General Counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union, Paul Halvonik, stated that the measures taken by Mayor Alioto and police are totally unprecedented in their scope and clearly indefensible in view of the Constitution. The Officers for Justice group, led by Nation of Islam associate Jesse Bird, described the policy as racist and unproductive. A week after the program began, Cinque, the black leader of the Symbionese Liberation Army, said, "If we look closely, we begin to see the truth that Operation Zebra is a planned enemy offensive against the enemy to commit a race war," also claiming that it was a means to get black males to submit to FBI classification and identification. In response to the public backlash about the program, Alioto compared the interrogations to that of the Zodiac murders, in which hundreds of white people were also stopped, and defended the searches as constitutional. Dr. Washington Garner, the first black police commissioner for the city of San Francisco, urged the city's black men, "If you are stopped, don't resent it. Show your identification and, if necessary, permit a search." 2 lawsuits were filed, one by the NAACP, asking that stop and search tactic be declared unconstitutional, and another by the ACLU on behalf of 6 young black men, asking that the searches be stopped. Nathaniel Colley, an attorney for the NAACP, told the judge, "By admission, the police are engaged in a wholesale violation of every black male's rights if he happens to be what they think fits the description of the zebra killer." On April 22, 1974, Alioto was spat on and struck on the head with protest signs as he walked through a crowd of about 1,000 demonstrators organized by a group called Coalition to Stop Operation Zebra. During the hearing for the lawsuits, which began on April 24, 1974, Chief of Inspectors Charles Barsa reported that of the 567 black men that had been stopped, 181 field interrogation cards were submitted, and that the searches produced no effective leads. A memo from Barsa, disclosed that day, revealed directions to police that stated, "Be more selective in making stops. Make them when the individual is acting or appears to be out of the ordinary." On April 25, 1974, U.S. District Judge Alfonso Zirpoli issued a court order ruling that the searches unconstitutionally violated the rights of young black men, and said officers must have probable cause, and that a likeness to the composite drawing was not enough. Following the order, the police cut back interrogations to just over a dozen per day, and on April 26, 1974, the city filed an appeal to Zirpoli's order, arrests and convictions. By April 18, 1974, rewards totaling $30,000 were being offered for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons involved in the murders. Just 10 days later, on April 28, 1974, Anthony Harris attended a secret meeting with the mayor that led to the arrest of 7 men on May 1, 1974, just 6 months after the killings began. The men were identified as J.C. Simon, 29, Larry Green, 22, Manuel Moore, 23, Dwight Stallings, 28, Thomas Manny, 31, Edgar Burton, 22, Clarence Jameson, 27. The last 4 were released due to lack of evidence. It was later reported that Harris, the informant, had actually been in discussions with police prior to meeting with Alioto. In the 10 hours of interrogation that was taped, he provided names, vehicle descriptions, stash locations inside of vehicles, and the center location where victims were taken for killing and dismemberment. As a result of this information, a special 28-man group of black police officers was divided into teams in order to maintain 24-hour surveillance on the named suspects. A public reference to this special team was made by Chief Scott on April 23, 1974. As an informant to police, Harris was stashed in a hotel and kept under guard. 2 days later, Mayor Aliotto was approached by a lawyer on behalf of Harris, who was motivated by a $30,000 reward. Despite this fumble, a meeting attended by the mayor, Chief Scott, Chief of Inspectors Charles Barca, Lieutenant Charles Ellis, Inspector Gus Correras, and Prosecutor Walter Giubini resulted in the decision to move forward with the arrests. Search warrants were issued for a black self-help center where Green, Simon, and Moore worked in Green and Simon's apartment and in automobiles seized. At the center, they collected a roll of rope, an axe, bows and arrows, a sickle, a machete, wire, plastic bags, 5 knives, a small hatchet, a handsaw, and a spear. In the apartment, they found 2 swords with scabbards and rope. The statement released by Mayor Aliotto following the arrests read, "The police have arrested several suspects in connection with the zebra killings. At this stage of the proceedings, all of these suspects are entitled in the presumption that they are innocent. And the police and I are entitled to the opinion that the ringleaders who perpetrated the wave of terror in San Francisco are behind bars. The investigation will continue until we are satisfied that we have rounded up all of the members of this group and have ensured the fact that new members will not take their place. I am confident that the trial judges have ample power to protect the suspects from the publicity which the zebra slayings have generated. I am also of the opinion that this community is entitled to know the nature of the terrorist organization responsible for the recent rash of crimes. The San Francisco police, under the leadership of Chief Donald Scott, have pierced the veil of a vicious ring of murders called Death Angels. The local group is a division of a larger organization dedicated to the murder and mutilation of whites and dissident blacks. The pattern of killing is by random street shooting or hacking to death with machete, cleaver, or knife. Decapitation or other forms of mayhem bring special credit from the organization for the killers. Hitchhikers are a particular prey. Death Angels, a kind of reverse Ku Klux Klan, is based on the muddled aberrations clearly outside the mainstream of Islamic religions. In my opinion, it represents as much a potential threat to blacks as to whites. Members are usually characterized by trim, neat appearance and purport to live by a puritanical code of moral conduct. They are fanatical believers in black separatism. The training of young boys 14 years of age and over in what they call martial arts is a practice of this group. It consists of teaching manual methods and techniques of killing or incapacitating. Our intelligence indicates that the national leader of this organization is apparently located outside of California and that he determines levels of promotion in the local divisions. The Death Angels, who use wings as an insignia, literally earn their promotions upon presentation of proof of the number and nature of the murders committed. Nearly 80 California murderous assaults, principally in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Alameda, and Sacramento counties between September of 1970 to date, have been characterized by the Death Angel pattern of operations, i.e. unprovoked attacks involving random shooting of whites in the street or mutilation by heavy-bladed weapons committed by neatly dressed young black men. An examination of the specific facts in the attached partial list of victims amply supports the inference on courtroom evidence that the similarity of pattern is better explained by concert of action than by coincidence. A concerted drive by local, state, and national law enforcement agencies is desperately needed to shatter this organization. Otherwise, the arrest of present perpetrators will result in their replacement by other Death Angels. The jails are favorite places of recruitment, with job opportunities upon release as one of the inducements. Investigation by local police, the FBI, and grand juries, preferably coordinated by the Attorney General of California, is in my opinion an absolute imperative. This investigation must be carried on by skilled, professional, dispassionate police work, avoiding emotional appeals and hysterical speculation. While it must be vigorous and relentless, it must stay within constitutional limitations. The public is urged to cooperate with police authorities and to come forward with information with the assurance that all the law permits by way of reward of leniency will be recommended in appropriate cases in exchange for valuable information. Special care must be taken by public officials and the police to prevent hate groups from converting a criminal investigation into a racial struggle. The inescapable fact of the matter is that most mass murderers of recent years, Manson, the Santa Cruz murderers, Corona, and Zodiac have been white. Murder knows no color and must be fought without aggravating sensitive racial tensions. For that reason, numerous blacks and whites with unquestioned credentials in the black community must participate in these law enforcement efforts. However, it should be clear that a constitutional assault on a murderous society of brutal killers cannot be diminished because its members are black any more than if they were white. Murder is murder, and no community will endure that approaches the struggle for effective law enforcement with anything less than rugged determination to wipe out organized lawlessness. Grand Jury. The grand jury's first meeting began on May 6, 1974, with unprecedented security. Witness identities remained protected due to an order banning extrajudicial statements. The following week, protesters from the Progressive Labor Party distributed literature demanding the indictment of Mayor Alioto and the police department for the harassment and terrorization of black people. They also requested the destruction of the Operation Zebra field interrogation cards. A grand jury transcript revealed that police officers unknowingly questioned and released the suspects 7 times, including during the abduction on the Haigs. Green, who was driving a white van at the time, was also stopped by an officer on October 31, 1973, but was released. 2 months later, on December 22, 1973, Simon and Moore interfered while an officer was conducting a traffic stop. Neither was cited, and 2 hours later, 2 more zebra murders occurred. Several more times, Simon, Green, and Moore were stopped, and each time they were let go. On May 9, 1974, Moore, Green, and Simon pleaded innocent to the murder charges. Their bail was set at $250,000 each. Harris's testimony, which covered 62 pages of the grand jury transcript, indicated he was present for 10 murders but did not actively participate. He said that he was told that the Death Angels were supposed to be a pretty high branch of the Nation of Islam and had 2,000 members nationwide. He also stated that the killings began after a meeting in September or October in Simon's apartment, at which 12 or 13 people were present. On the date of the Haig murder and assault, Harris testified that Green and Cooks offered him a ride home, but instead made him a participant in the kidnapping of the couple. On May 16, 1974, the grand jury indicted all 4 men on murder charges. Moore and Simon were indicted on 2 counts each of murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Moore was charged with 2 additional accounts of assault with an additional weapon. Green and Cooks were indicted on 1 count each of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of robbery, and 1 of assault with a deadly weapon. Bail was set for each at $300,000. Trial. On May 29, 1974, all 4 suspects pleaded innocent to the charges for the 3 murders. The trial date was originally set for July 8, 1974, however. Due to a scheduling conflict with the defendant's attorney, the trial was postponed multiple times. By February 21, 1975, Clinton White, the attorney for defendants Green, Moore, and Simon, said Harris sent him 2 letters claiming police threatened to revoke his parole if he failed to testify. White and defense attorney for Cooks, Roger Pierucci, tape-recorded an interview with Harris in which the informant recanted his testimony. On February 24, 1975, a $14 million lawsuit was filed in which Mayor Alioto and the San Francisco Police Department found themselves the defendants. The Zebra killings defendants and the 4 men that were released were the plaintiffs. They asked for damages for false arrests and the fright, shame, humiliation, embarrassment, and worry suffered. The trial began on March 3, 1975. During the first day of trial, 48 jurors were excused for hardship. Defense attorney Clinton White requested a delay due illness of their chief strategist, Edward Jacko. That same night, a briefcase, tape recorder, cassettes, and binders concerning the Zebra trial were stolen from the parked car of one of the defense attorneys, John Cruikshank. After questioning 205 potential jurors over the course of 4 weeks, on March 27, 1975, the juror panel was seated, 5 men and 7 women. In opening remarks by the prosecution, District Attorney Robert Podesta stated police have the .32 caliber pistol that was used in 5 of the 20 murders and assaults. He also revealed they have a wedding ring taken from Quita Haig. Harris, who was granted immunity, describing the machete slaying of Quita Haig, said, "Larry grabbed the woman by her hair and took a machete knife and took her 20 feet from the van. He raised it over his head and sliced down on her neck. He kept chopping. He continued, "He came over to where I was standing and said, 'You should have seen the blood gush out of that devil's neck.'" He then described Cook's attack on Quita's husband. Harris also testified that he rode for several hours with the defendants on the night in January that 4 persons were killed and 1 was wounded. When questioned about the letters he wrote to defense attorney White, Harris said he just made up the story because of pressures on his wife and anger towards the district attorney's office. Michael Armstrong, 23, testified under immunity that he sold the gun that killed and wounded several victims in 1974 to Thomas Manny, manager of the Black Self-Help Center and former suspect in the zebra killings. A month into the trial, a 12-year-old girl identified Cooks in court as the man who tried to abduct her at gunpoint on October 20th, 1973. Her testimony coincided with Harris's, who described how he, Cooks, and 2 other men attempted to abduct 3 children before abducting the Haigs. Also heard in the trial was Cooks's confession to the Francis Rose shooting. Linda Story, who survived with a bullet lodged in her spine, testified about the attack on her and fellow cadet Tom Rainwater. After 12 months, 212 days in court, and testimony from 181 witnesses, jury deliberations began. Just 3 days later, all 4 defendants were found guilty. Green laughed out loud as jurors were polled. Cooks also laughed after conferring with his attorney. Moore and Simon showed no emotion. Moore and Simon were charged with 2 counts each of murder and assault with a deadly weapon in the murders of Tana Smith and Jane Holly. Each was also charged with 2 counts of assault in the attack on Roxanne McMillan. In addition, Moore was charged with assault on Terry White and Ward Anderson. Green and Cooks were charged with 1 count each of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of robbery, and 1 assault with a deadly weapon for the murder of Quita Haig and the attack on her husband, Richard Haig. On March 29, 1976, Cooks, Green, Moore, and Simon were sentenced to life in prison, the maximum penalty allowed. Aftermath. On March 12, 2015, J.C.X. Simon, age 69, was found unresponsive in his cell at San Quentin State Prison, where since 1976 he had been serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole. He was declared dead of unknown causes, pending an autopsy. Moore, aged 75, died on November 15, 2017, at the California Healthcare Facility. Cooks died in prison on June 30, 2021, at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility. Larry Green is currently incarcerated in California State Prison, Solano. He was most recently denied parole on July 31, 2024.